Heart of Compassion. It was past 8 p.m. when James Carter left the hospital. The city was quiet, with only the occasional sound of a distant car breaking the silence. He adjusted his backpack, feeling the weight of the day on his shoulders, and began his walk home. Walking was something James enjoyed, a way to clear his mind and reflect on the journey that had brought him here. James was a young surgeon, only 28 years old, but he had already accomplished much in his career. Since childhood, he had dreamed of becoming a doctor. His mother, Eleanor, always encouraged him, despite the challenges they faced. Eleanor had passed away 10 years ago from kidney disease, which they couldn't treat in time. Her loss had been a heavy blow, but it also motivated James to study hard and become a competent surgeon, capable of saving lives like his mother's. As he walked, James fondly remembered Eleanor and the dreams she had nurtured in him. This memory made him notice a small figure sitting on the curb near a park. He approached and saw a girl, about 9 years old, crying and clutching her arm with an expression of pain. His medical instincts kicked in immediately. "Hi, I'm James. Are you hurt?" he asked, kneeling beside the girl. "My arm hurts a lot," she replied between sobs. "I'm Emily." James quickly examined Emily's arm and realized it was broken. He knew he needed to act fast. "I'm going to take you to the hospital, Emily. Is that okay?" Emily nodded, and James carefully lifted her and carried her to his car. The hospital was only a few blocks away, but the trip felt like an eternity for Emily, who clutched her arm tightly, trying to hold back the pain. Upon arriving at the hospital, James guided Emily to the emergency room and ordered an X-ray of her arm. While they waited, he tried to comfort her by telling stories about his childhood and how he dreamed of becoming a doctor. The X-ray confirmed his suspicions. Her arm was broken and required surgery. The chief of surgery, Dr. Henry Thompson, wasn't present, which put James in a difficult position. He knew the surgery was relatively simple, but without Henry's permission, there could be consequences. However, seeing Emily's pain and remembering his promise to help those in need, James decided to go ahead with the procedure. "We're going to get through this together, Emily. I promise you'll be fine," he said, trying to comfort the girl. The surgery was quick and smooth. James opted for local anesthesia to minimize the risks, and the operation was a success. With her arm immobilized and in a cast, Emily could finally relax. However, James knew Emily's situation was complicated. She hadn't paid for the surgery and not all necessary tests had been done. "Emily, I need to take you home now. You can't stay here in the hospital," he explained. "But I need to go back to my house." "My mom must be worried," Emily said, tears welling up again. "We'll figure it out together, okay?" James reassured her. Back at his apartment, James tried to find out more about where Emily lived or a phone number to contact, but the pain and trauma of the accident made it difficult for her to remember any useful details. "Don't worry, Emily. Let's get some rest now. We'll sort everything out tomorrow," he said, covering the girl with a blanket on the couch. While Emily slept, James sat in his armchair, exhausted. His thoughts were a jumbled mix of concern for Emily and the possible repercussions of his actions at the hospital. He knew challenges lay ahead, but he didn't regret helping the girl. Looking at Emily, he felt a renewed determination to honor his mother's memory by helping those who needed it most. The sun had barely risen when James woke up, feeling the fatigue of the few hours of sleep. He prepared a quick coffee and checked on Emily, who was still sleeping soundly on the couch. He wrote a simple note explaining that he had to go to work and would be back soon. He left the TV on and some snacks within her reach, hoping she would feel safe until his return. When James arrived at the hospital, he barely had time to prepare for the day's work. A nurse quickly approached him, looking worried. "Dr. Carter, Dr. Thompson wants to see you immediately in his office." With a knot in his stomach, James followed her to the chief of surgery's office. Entering, he found Henry sitting behind his desk, with a stern expression. "Sit down, James," Henry ordered without preamble. James obeyed, trying to stay calm. "I've heard some troubling rumors," Henry began, his voice firm. "They say you performed unauthorized surgery on a child last night." James took a deep breath before responding. "Yes, sir. The situation was urgent. The girl, Emily, had a broken arm and needed immediate intervention. You weren't available, so I made the decision to operate." Henry sighed, rubbing his temples. "I understand your intentions, James, and I know you wanted to help. But there are protocols to be followed. Your action, though well-intentioned, put the hospital at risk. I can't overlook that." James felt a tighter knot in his chest. He knew Henry was right, but the thought of letting Emily suffer was unbearable. "I understand, sir. I did what I thought was right at the time. I'm willing to accept the consequences." Henry observed him for a long moment before responding. "James, you're one of our best surgeons, but we need to maintain order and safety in the hospital. You're fired." Those words hit him like a heavy blow. James stood slowly, feeling desolation wash over him. Without saying another word, he left Henry's office and walked out of the hospital. Back at his apartment, James found Emily still sleeping on the couch. He let out a heavy sigh, trying to process the day's events. He decided to turn on the TV to try and distract himself a little. As he changed channels, a news report caught his attention. A report about a missing child was being broadcast, and Emily's photo appeared on the screen. James's heart raced. "Emily, it must be her on TV," he murmured to himself, grabbing the remote and turning up the volume. The reporter described Emily's disappearance and showed images of her mother, Lauren, desperate for information about her daughter. There was a phone number on the screen. Without hesitation, James picked up his phone and dialed the number. "Hello," a woman's voice answered, filled with anxiety. "Hello, my name is James Carter. I'm with Emily, the girl you're looking for. She's safe and well." The voice on the other end of the line was silent for a moment before Lauren spoke again, this time with a mixture of hope and desperation. "Where is she? Can I see her?" Lauren asked, her voice trembling. "Yes, of course. I'll give you the address. But please, come calmly. Emily is a little scared." Lauren thanked him repeatedly before hanging up. James turned to look at Emily, still sleeping, trying to calm himself. After hanging up the phone, James looked at Emily, still sleeping in the guest room. He knew he needed to reassure Lauren that her daughter was safe. He took out his phone and, carefully so as not to wake the girl, took a picture of Emily sleeping. He sent the photo to Lauren along with a brief message. "Here's Emily. She's safe and sound. I'll be waiting for you at the address I gave you." Minutes passed, but to James, they felt like hours. He couldn't relax, knowing that Emily's mother must be in a state of despair. Then, the silence was broken by the insistent sound of the doorbell. James went to the door and opened it cautiously, expecting to see Lauren. However, along with Lauren, 2 police officers were present, with serious expressions. "Are you James Carter?" one of the officers asked. "Yes, that's me," James replied, feeling a chill down his spine. "We need to talk." "Can you come with us, please?" said the other officer, already pulling out handcuffs. Lauren, her eyes filled with tears, looked directly at James. "Where's my daughter?" she asked, her voice trembling. Before James could respond, the officers handcuffed him and began leading him out of the apartment. "Wait," James said, trying to explain. "Emily is here, she's fine. I just helped her." The officers maintained their serious expressions, keeping James handcuffed as they entered the apartment. "Ma'am, can you show us where the girl is?" one of the officers asked Lauren. Lauren nodded, still trembling, and entered the apartment, leading the officers to the guest room. Emily was lying in bed, her arm in a cast. Relief and confusion mingled on her face as she knelt beside her daughter, gently stroking her hair. "She's okay," Lauren murmured, looking at the officers. The officers checked on Emily, who continued to sleep peacefully. One of the officers turned to James, still handcuffed. "Sir, it seems there's been a misunderstanding. We'll clarify this right here. Can you tell us exactly what happened?" James, with a sigh of relief, began to explain in detail how he found Emily in the park, took her to the hospital, and performed the surgery to help her. Lauren listened carefully, and as James recounted the events, her expression softened. She began to understand that James had really acted to save her daughter. "I was desperate, sir," Lauren said to the officer. "I thought she had been kidnapped. But it seems he really helped. Her." The officers exchanged glances, and finally one of them spoke. "Sir, it seems the situation is clear now. We'll remove the handcuffs." With that, the officers released James. He rubbed his wrists, relieved, and looked at Lauren. "I'm sorry for all of this, James. I was desperate and thought the worst," Lauren said, with tears in her eyes. "I understand, Lauren. Any mother would have done the same." "The important thing is that Emily is safe now," James replied, trying to smile. Lauren looked at James with concern. "But what about you, James? What happened at the hospital after you helped Emily?" she asked. James sighed, feeling the weight of the last 24 hours. "I was fired from the hospital for performing the surgery without authorization. Dr. Thompson felt I had violated protocols. But I would do it all again if it meant helping Emily." Lauren was silent for a moment, processing James's words. Then, a determined expression appeared on her face. "Don't worry, James. Tomorrow morning, we're going to the hospital to sort this out." The next morning, James woke up with a sense of uncertainty but also determination. After the tumultuous events of the previous night, he knew he needed to resolve the situation at the hospital. Lauren had promised to help him, and together they were ready to face the consequences. When they arrived at the hospital, they went straight to Dr. Thompson's office. Lauren led the way, with Emily and James close behind. When they entered, Dr. Thompson looked up, surprised to see the trio. "James, what are you doing here?" Dr. Thompson asked, visibly irritated. "I've already fired you." Before James could respond, Lauren intervened. "Dr. Thompson, we need to talk. This man saved my daughter's life. He did what was necessary when no one else could." Dr. Thompson looked at Lauren, confused. "And who are you?" "I'm Lauren Brooks, daughter of Charles Brooks, the principal investor in this hospital," she replied firmly. Dr. Thompson was visibly surprised. James, for his part, was shocked by the revelation. "James doesn't deserve to be fired for doing the right thing. He acted to save my daughter, and I won't allow him to be punished for that," Lauren continued. Dr. Thompson took a deep breath, trying to maintain his composure. "Ms. Brooks, I understand your position, but there are protocols. Protocols that need to be flexible in emergency situations," Lauren interrupted. "I'm going to talk to my father about this. Not only should James be reinstated, but he should also be recognized for his quick and decisive actions." Dr. Thompson remained silent, knowing he had little argument against the daughter of the principal investor. He nodded slowly. "Very well, I'll inform Mr. Brooks. We'll sort this out." Lauren thanked him with a nod and turned to James. Let's go, James. We need to make sure this is resolved correctly. As they waited in the corridor, the presence of Charles Brooks was immediately felt. He arrived with an air of authority and concern, walking directly toward Lauren. "Lauren, what's going on here?" he asked, glancing at James and Emily. "Dad, this is Dr. James Carter. He saved Emily's life when she was in danger. Dr. Thompson fired him for acting quickly in an emergency. We need to correct this injustice," Lauren explained, her voice full of conviction. Charles looked at James, assessing him for a moment before speaking. "Dr. Carter, tell me exactly what happened." James repeated the story, explaining how he found Emily, took her to the hospital, and performed the emergency surgery. Charles listened attentively, without interruption. "Thompson, is this true?" Charles asked, turning to the head of surgery. Dr. Thompson nodded, visibly uncomfortable. "Yes, Mr. Brooks. But I was following the hospital's protocols." Charles pondered for a moment before making his decision. "Thompson, I appreciate your commitment to protocols, but in emergencies, we need to be flexible. Dr. Carter acted correctly by saving a life. You're fired for failing to recognize that. Dr. Carter, from now on, you will be the new head of surgery at this hospital." James was stunned, unable to believe what he was hearing. "Sir, I don't know what to say." "Thank you very much," he replied, emotionally. Lauren smiled, satisfied with the outcome. Charles placed a hand on James's shoulder. "Just keep doing the excellent work you've been doing. This hospital needs people like you." As they left the office, James felt a new hope and a renewed determination. Lauren looked at him with a gentle smile. "You deserved this, James, and I'm here to help in any way I can." A new beginning. The days that followed Lauren's revelation were marked by significant changes in James's life. The news of his appointment as head of surgery spread quickly throughout the hospital, bringing a mix of respect and curiosity from his colleagues. However, more than the new position, it was the constant presence of Lauren and Emily that marked the greatest transformation in his life. James and Lauren began to spend more time together, initially to discuss hospital-related matters. They met regularly for lunch or coffee, and these work meetings soon turned into moments of camaraderie and friendship. Lauren was an intelligent and determined woman, with a strong sense of justice. She admired James not only for his skill as a surgeon, but also for his compassion and courage. He, in turn, found in Lauren a formidable ally, someone who understood the challenges of his profession and supported him unconditionally. The friendship between the two began to deepen. Conversations about work evolved into discussions about life, dreams, and fears. James felt comfortable talking about his mother, Eleanor, and how she had inspired his career in medicine. Lauren shared stories about her own childhood and the lessons she learned from her father, Charles. Emily, meanwhile, was delighted with James's constant presence. She loved his visits and the small gestures of affection he always showed. Whether helping her with schoolwork or simply playing in the park, James became a father figure in her life. Emily felt safe and loved, and her contagious smile was a reflection of the welcoming environment that was forming around her. One day, during a walk in the park, Emily held James's hand as they walked together. Lauren watched the scene with a smile, feeling a comforting warmth in her heart. The dynamic between them was becoming increasingly familiar and welcoming, almost like a real family. "Uncle James, can you come to dinner with us tonight?" Emily asked, her eyes shining with expectation. James looked at Lauren, who nodded with a smile. "Of course, Emily. I'd love to," he replied, feeling a genuine joy. A love blossoms. That night, dinner was filled with laughter and shared stories. Lauren's house, which once seemed large and empty, was now full of life. Emily was radiant, and Lauren couldn't contain her happiness at seeing her daughter so content. After dinner, while Emily was drawing in the living room, Lauren and James were talking in the kitchen. "Thank you for everything, James. You've brought so much joy into our lives," Lauren said sincerely. "I should be thanking you, Lauren. You've also brought a lot of happiness into my life." "I feel at home here," he replied with a warm smile. The feelings between James and Lauren were becoming increasingly deep. There was a special connection that went beyond friendship, something that both felt but had not yet verbalized. It was a bond that grew stronger every day, based on respect, admiration, and growing affection. A few months passed since that memorable dinner, and the relationship between James and Lauren flourished naturally and fully. The love they shared was becoming the cornerstone of their lives, and Emily's ever-radiant presence only strengthened the bond between them. On a special night, during a walk through the park where everything had begun, James decided it was the right time to take the next step. He had planned something simple but meaningful. Beside an old tree, where they often sat and talked, James stopped and looked deeply into Lauren's eyes. "Lauren, since you and Emily came into my life, everything has changed for the better. You've brought light, love, and a happiness I never thought was possible. I feel like I've finally found my place in the world, and that place is by your side." Lauren, her eyes shining with emotion, held James's hand, waiting for what would come next. "Lauren, I love you. I love Emily as if she were my daughter, and I want us to be a real family. Will you marry me?" James asked, pulling out a simple yet meaningful ring from his pocket. With tears in her eyes, Lauren smiled widely and answered without hesitation. "Yes, James, I will. There's nothing I want more than to be with you and build our life together." They embraced tightly, sealing the moment with a kiss full of love and promises for the future. Emily, who had been playing nearby, ran over to them, realizing what had just happened. "Uncle James, are you really going to be with us now?" she asked excitedly. "Yes, Emily. Now we're a real family," James replied, lifting her into his arms and spinning her around, both of them laughing with pure joy. From that moment on, the lives of James, Lauren, and Emily intertwined even more deeply. They faced life's challenges together, supporting each other and celebrating every small triumph. The wedding was an intimate ceremony, surrounded by friends and family who celebrated with them the union of a new and happy family. James continued to excel as the head of surgery, always with the unconditional support of Lauren and the contagious affection of Emily. Their home was always filled with laughter, love, and a genuine joy that spread to everyone around them. And so, the story of James, Lauren, and Emily became a beautiful tale of love, compassion, and redemption. A true testament that, with courage, kindness, and the right kind of love, any challenge can be overcome, and true happiness can be found. They knew that the future was full of promise and that, together, they could face anything, always hand in hand, as the family they had always dreamed of being.